Hello everyone, this is KD0RVY, and we have another video here for you today in regards to our antenna series. This is not going to be a tutorial, so to speak, as far as the antennas go, but this is kind of a revamp in addition to some modifications I've made. I have made one more ladder line J-pole antenna. I'm calling it my stealth antenna, and you'll see that here in a little bit. First off, though, I did want to tie off. This is going to be our second video, as I said in the first video, in regards to our directional antenna, and this is going to be kind of the finishing touches in addition to some mods that I've made. So I'll get that up here. This is the finished antenna. I know the whole thing is not in the frame because it's about 40 some inches long, but you know, when I first started looking for a directional antenna or backpackable antenna, there wasn't really a lot of different things out there as far as kind of streamlining it, any kind of different modifications, unless you're just building a bulkier antenna in general, and the materials that you use. But other than that, it's pretty much the same principles and the same designs, you know, and so on and so forth. So what I've done here is I'm going to call this the KD0RVY mods on this antenna. What that includes is attaching the SO239 connector on the end here, and I will go through on how I did that. In addition to, and I know you can't see it, I will have some pictures posted up at the end of this video so you can actually see it. But what I did here is I've got my alligator clips, my ground and the center conductor, and then the coax runs down the length of the arrow shaft here, and then the center conductor, because of how this is mounted on the back, the center conductor, I created a little notch, you know, kind of like a hole like this, but elongated, so that way that center conductor cable, this right here, the dialect, could actually fit in there, and I'm going to show you what this is for here in just a moment too. So that center conductor goes actually into the arrow shaft and gets fed through the back end here where it connects to the SO239 connector, and then the ground wire just continues down the top of the arrow shaft here and got soldered onto the little tab here of the SL239 connector. Also, as you can see, I have used, once again, the famous liquid electrical tape. You know, I absolutely love this stuff. This stuff is so cool and so handy. It beats using electrical tape on everything, and it's just awesome, awesome stuff. I actually, when I first started doing this part of the modification, you know, because I'm a blonde airhead, I kind of goofed and got a little bit too ahead of myself and had to peel this off. This stuff peels off so easily, it's wonderful. You just take your X-Acto knife and you kind of score it, and then, you know, use the tip of your knife and just kind of scrape it a little bit, you know, and then you can just start peeling it off. And sometimes it just peels off in little pieces. Overall, though, this stuff, the fact that it even peels off as nice as it does is wonderful. So I would strongly suggest getting a bottle of stuff, you know, for your workbench. Great, great stuff. They are not paying me to say that. So going forward, what I've also done, not that this is anything special, is to make sure, now the reason for this, the heat shrink here, is because of that ground cable that's up here was kind of, I mean, it wasn't loose, but the fact that it kind of forms this little loop, this little opening here, I didn't want it to be like in a backpack or something and have something catch onto that and pull it. Sure, yeah, you know, that could happen in this little opening here, but far less likely. I'm not so much worried about this as I would be about this big loop being here. So I took my biggest piece of heat shrink I had, fed it all the way down. I probably should have done that before putting the alligator clips on, but I got past that simply by you know, just stretching this out and going down it that way, rather than it was pretty hard to try to do it two at once like that. So so then I used the heat shrink, shrunk that over there. That took care of that problem there. Then I've got my 3 zip ties here to kind of keep the cable you know, intact with the arrow shaft here, again, kind of preventing loops and stuff, but also just to kind of make it nice and neat. We went through the rest of the stuff. The one other thing too, I officially, since I've got the SL239 connector on here, was officially able to get rid of both of the ends. Now I was only using you know, towards the end here, I was only using this end to plug that up. So I've been out of this one, the second one, for a while. But I don't know how good you're going to be able to see this. But, you know, I got to say I'm pretty happy with this, because with a lot of things I am a perfectionist, and this looks absolutely perfect. But I did plug up this end of the arrow shaft too. I hope that's coming in for you guys. But what I did is to do that, I simply took, I say simply, but there was some struggling, but the concept of it and the idea of it is pretty simple. I'm trying to pick it up here over here in my junk pile. I took a piece of the zip tie tails that you get left behind after you do this, and what I did is I was taking, and I actually had to use both of these, but essentially what I was doing was taking an end like this and just trying to make this really, really tight curly Q, or whatever you want to call it, that was just big enough to go into the opening of the arrow shaft there, and to plug it up. Like I said, it took some work. As a matter of fact, I actually had to use this to try to squeeze it down every time I was trying to make a fold, and squeeze it down until I got just the right size. Once I got that size, now you can go about plugging that up any which way you want. My big thing was I wanted something that was sturdy, something that was going to, and this is, you know, pretty hard plastic. But I also wanted something, because I kind of had an idea of how I was going to do it, but I wanted something that was going to create like a flat surface, which once this stuff is rolled up like that, and you keep it nice and tight, it does create, you know, a flat surface, you know, once you get it on there. So then the second step in this is, once you got that in the arrow shaft, is, again, I used my liquid electrical tape, and I just kind of blobbed in some in there, tapped it down, you know, just kind of tapped the edges and whatever, just to kind of have it level out and fill in some of the gaps. And once that was done, I think I probably used this 2 different times. I used it the first time, let it dry and even out, and I did a second time to just kind of bring it up another level. And then once that was done, I just simply took my flat file out of my little kit here, this one here, and just, you know, filed the edges down, and then went along the outside to make sure there weren't any sharp edges, so I can rub my finger around, you know, along there, and I'm not going to get cut. So that was the other thing too. And I didn't want anything that the elements that are in here would potentially stick into and get stuck, so it eliminated that issue also. So that is pretty much everything as far as the modifications I've done on this antenna. There is one more, however, I'm going to be doing that I'm kind of in the process of working on right now. I still got to get the part, but for quite a while I've been doing airsoft, and so I've got this guy, I call him my gun dealer. He's where I get a lot of my toys from. And so what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to get a pistol grip and incorporate it into the very end of this, so that way when it's in use, you actually have something that you can hold on to. The other idea that I'm going to be doing with that, and hopefully the heat shrink isn't going to get in the way of me being able to do that, but once I've got the pistol grip installed on here, I'm going to go ahead and try to find a way that it can fold upwards towards the antenna itself, so that way when it is being stored in a backpack, not only is it going to add some bulk if you've got a bigger pocket that you need to put it in, and it might help fill that pocket and just kind of keep it nice and sturdy in there, but in addition to you know, again, keeping everything streamlined so it lessens it being caught on anything. And then the other thing is too is when I've got that handle made, I'm going to try to find a way to incorporate get a piece of spare cable here. I know that this isn't the right cable or connectors or anything, but when you get your cable and your connector hooked up to this, you know, naturally it's going to hang down and it's going to cause some strain, even as sturdy of a you know, that is in there, it's still going to cause some strain. So to alleviate that, the idea is that once I've got the cable connected there, I'm going to kind of make this loop on the back and try to build in a notch into that handle, just so this can kind of click into that and then hang down off the handle, therefore alleviating any of the stress on that connector. So that's kind of one of my other ideas. I know in the realm of things, you know, a lot of you are probably thinking, well, it just seems like an awful lot of work for an antenna. It's not really that much work. I probably put more energy into thinking about how I'm going to do this than actually doing it. So that's just kind of how I am. You know, it's almost like the measure twice, cut once thing. You know, I think everything through before actually doing it. It doesn't mean that every time I do something it's perfect, but you know, it's good to go into this type of stuff with a plan. So we'll go ahead, we'll get this out of the side. Maybe when I do that handle thing, I'll even do a third video on this antenna, just so you guys can see and get some further ideas about what I'm doing. If you want to incorporate that idea, you can kind of see how I did it, maybe spin off your own ideas, whatever. So, you know, that's what this whole thing is all about. It's, you know, about creating your own things with your own ideas, or, you know, even other people's ideas, whatever it may be. So now, this. The reason for this is to show you, and actually I should bring my antenna back up here, to show you how I attached this SL239 connector. As most of you should know by now, there's on the inside of that connector where the center conductor gets connected onto, there's a little thing that center conductor gets soldered into, and I'll bet you and this is a coat hanger, that bottom part of a coat hanger rod. I'll bet you it's probably about, you know, this thickness, maybe a little bit thicker than this. I don't have anything else right now. Well, actually, maybe this. Probably about this thick, okay? That the copper part gets, it's just a little, you know, half or three-quarter circle thing that the little copper part gets soldered into, and maybe only about that long. So it's not very much to work with, and of course, in relation to the thickness of you know, an arrow shaft, well, that's a lot of space there. So what I did was this. Get this stuff out of the way. So what we're gonna do is kind of pretend a little bit. This right here is our SL239 connector with the solder piece soldered into it, okay? I know it's a dialect, but this is the little thing that comes off. We're going to say that this is the little tab or whatever that comes off the SL239 connector, and the solder piece is soldered into it. This back here is inside the arrow shaft, and this actually is the dialect with the center conductor, which goes to the top. Okay, so this part here is actually inside the arrow shaft all the way up until back here, where it actually comes up to the top of the arrow shaft and is joined with the ground and everything within the actual coax itself. So here's what I did. I'll finally get to that. So the only thing that is around this this little thing on the end of the SL239 connector and the center conductor is solder. So we're just going to pretend that all this clear material here is all solder. That's all we got to work with. So what I did is, this is all little pieces of coax that I just cut up to be about the same length as to what I have to work with as far as solder. So these also have been cut down the sides, as I've been showing you in previous videos. So those are already cut down the sides. So what I did is I did use, again, the liquid electrical tape, and I did just one coat, and I'm not actually going to go through all these steps or actually show you, but I'll kind of tell you as I go. I did one coat around this with the liquid electrical tape. Once I had that, then I went ahead and I applied the first little piece of coax insulator. Okay, this is the outside part. Now, right now, this is kind of on there loose. Now, had I have actually had liquid electrical tape on there, this would be a little bit tighter, but that's okay, as long as you guys get the general idea of it. So, once I got that on there, I even went as far as putting just a little bit of liquid electrical tape just on the seam, just to kind of keep things nice and tight. Once you do that, let it dry, and then go ahead and remember, the one thing I kind of failed at is I kind of rushed this a little bit, and I didn't let all the liquid electrical tape dry. So make sure each and every step that you do, let it dry. It will pay off in the end if you do that. Then what you do is take your second piece here and then actually go over the seam of the last one. So you kind of want to, you know, overlap each one of these and then put that on. Now what I did here at this step, okay, so this is our second piece, and I don't know if you can see it on the camera, hopefully you can. There's quite a bit of a bigger gap here now, okay? And what I did again is take a liquid electrical tape and not only use it to kind of just apply just one coat. We don't need to build up or anything, just one coat, not just to fill in this gap, but also kind of overlap it a little bit. This will add some extra rigidity to it and to kind of keep everything as one piece. And then also on this end, just kind of overlap it a little bit when you're filling in this gap. And again, of course, let it dry. And then once it is dry, I would say, you know, the bottle says, if I remember correctly, I think like 5 minutes. Honestly, if you want this to be dry, I would go ahead and let it dry for a bare minimum of probably a half an hour. You know, I mean, if you've got nothing but time, use it. So now we're going to go ahead and add our third and fourth piece. This is where things are slightly different. Once this is dry here, what we're going to do now is actually go from end to end. So now you can see we got an end here on the second piece and also an end down here on the second piece. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to butt ends together of the third and second. To do that, what we're going to do is just go like this. And I know you can't really see what I'm doing here, but I'll show you. Is go from end to end and then let the other piece wrap around. Now you can see how we've created a seam there and not an overlap this time like we've been doing. So what you can do is when you lay down this third piece, go ahead and do just a thin coat or even just a couple little drops that can be easily pushed when you apply this piece. But let me go ahead and take this off, is go ahead and just take, you know, like a nice little bead of it and apply it in here somewhere between the two ends. So then that way when you go ahead, you can kind of use it as an adhesive in that way. When you add this third piece and you butt it up end to end and you start pushing it just a little bit, you don't have to push it hard, but when you start pushing it and letting that piece roll out, hopefully that little bead will finally be pushed along the bottom side of this third piece there. So go ahead and again, let that one dry, and we're going to do this. I think I ended up doing, I don't remember if it was 3 or 4. I'm just going to go ahead and show you with 4. This may differ depending on what arrow shafts you're using and their inner diameter and all that. So you'll kind of want to dry fit this and test it out before actually, because remember when you do this, it's also going to add more thickness to it. So dry fit it and kind of play it by ear before you actually start building this little thing here to fit your arrow shaft and then find out it's too big. You know, if it's too small, well, you can always add more. If it's too big, it can be a little bit of a bigger hassle. So then what we're going to do is let that dry, and once that's dry, we're going to go ahead and add again just another little bead here at the end, just enough that it looks like it'll probably be enough to be pushed out to the length of this last piece. So then once you do that and you add some of that liquid electrical tape to kind of use it to hold it down, go ahead and add that last piece onto the little thing that we're piecing together here. And you know, I know you're probably thinking, well, this seems really kind of, you know, chintzy, this may not work. So far for me it's been working. The idea behind it on why I even wanted to do this was because I also did the very same thing like this on the inside. So then that way, and I'm not going to go through and do that twice, but you get the idea. I did it on the inside of the arrow shaft too, probably about just as thick here, in this direction. And the idea behind it was, and I also, before I continue, added liquid electrical tape on the exposed copper. This way I know without a doubt that there's not going to be any metal to metal contact, which of course is important. So not only do I have this and the same thing on this side, but I've also got liquid electrical tape covering this. So that means that this copper is floating down the center of the arrow shaft just for that little, you know, bit there, and I don't have to worry about metal on metal contact. Okay, so that's kind of the idea behind all this. Now what I did is I even went a step further. Once this was all dry and I knew that this was going to fit, and I've already figured that it was going to fit, I just took a smaller amount. I used like a small, really cheap, let me get it here, model paintbrush like this. I mean, you can go to your model shops, and I think you get like a packet of, you know, 4 or 5 of these for like a couple bucks, whatever. And I used this and got some of the liquid electrical tape on this, and just went and just brushed once everything was already dry, because you don't want to brush this stuff when it's still trying to dry, because then it ends up getting really tacky and messy. So make sure it's dry. I went ahead and I brushed the end of this, and just so that way this is kind of bonded to you know, this up there. And I also went back, and because on the end of the SL239 connector we kind of have that white base that's back here, I also went and I brushed some of this onto that around there just to kind of join everything together. So like I said, everything's been holding up great. If you've got a different way you want to do this, by all means go ahead and do it. I just kind of used what was at my disposal, which was you know, these little pieces. I already cleaned up the table, but I mean, I've got all of my pieces over here from the ladder line project and from, you know, this directional antenna project. So I mean, I've got little pieces of, you know, ladder line here. I've got you know, my zip tie tails and some coax, you know, insulation from the outside of the coax, so all sorts of little bits and pieces. And rather than just trying to think of a new way to do it and dig out, you know, I don't know, or have to buy something new, I just kind of used what I had, and it works great. So that's how I did that. So that should pretty much be everything for you guys in regards to this antenna. I'm going to go ahead and make a second video for the ladder line for the stealth antenna, so be on the lookout for that. But just before I tie things up here, this, just so you get the relationship here, this sits like this in relationship to the antenna, just in case there's any confusion there. So like I said, right here on our little piece here, this very back part is the white, you know, right here on the SL239 connector. This is our center conductor, and then this is the actual dialect, and you know, that goes up through the center of the arrow shaft and comes up through here in that notch I made in the arrow shaft, and then stretches down here in the coax. So that's pretty much what this is right here that we just did. So I'm going to go ahead and I am going to get started here shortly on that second video. That is our or the stealth version, as I'm calling it, of the 2 meter ladder line J-pole antenna that we did earlier, and I'm going to cover through that. There isn't any real reason I call it stealth. I mean, there's one or two reasons, but it's not like any kind of stealth technology that I'd stolen from our U.S. government, military forces, or anything like that. So you'll see what that's all about, and kind of some different design features that I kind of added to that one too. So also I want to say thanks again to all of you guys who have subscribed. In addition to all of you viewers out there, I have officially hit the 2,000 mark. I know that doesn't seem like much, but to me, that's a big number. You know, especially for somebody who is just you know, starting this YouTube channel stuff, and you know, getting started into the ham radio hobby, storm chasing, and all that. You know, those numbers mean a lot. I know it's not in the millions, but you know, 2,000. You know, for me is substantial, and that's just kind of the fuel that keeps me going. So, you know, I want to thank each and every one of you for everything. In addition to the comments that have been left, the questions that have been asked, you know, that's what this is all about. So, you know, me being a new person in the ham radio hobby, and I'm sure a lot of you out there also being new to the hobby, you know, we get the opportunity through the YouTube channel to kind of grow together, learn from each other, you know, and to be able to bounce ideas off each other and help each other out. And that's really what it's all about. So I want to say thanks to all of you for everything, and you know, the contributions with that. So thanks again, and this is KD0RVY.